Okay, so I play Bard the Bowman. He you discover him on the lake shores, the shores of Lake Town. He meets the dwarves, and he's just a bargeman and works in Lake Town. It's not a nice place, and he brings the dwarves into Lake Town under the premise of making some money. There wasn't challenges more than I mean, it was just a great experience. I guess the challenges were when you were working with people that weren't there at the time because they were too small, they were in a different set, you know, like the scale thing was always quite weird, but it was just a challenge, and it was quite enjoyable. When you see the end product and you see how successful it looks on screen, you just go, oh, that's good, that's clever. And working with Peter is a great thing. He's you know, he's a man on a mission and doesn't get scared that easily by the enormity of this project, and having him at the helm was always a great reassuring feeling, you know, that you could ask him a question, he always knew the answer to it, and that was a nice thing. Just living in New Zealand was the thing that will stay with me for the long time, and doing them back to back is, I think it was imperative to keep the energy and the same feel about the three films. It would be different if we'd taken big breaks and then come back and shot another one. I think it felt very much like it was one long story that we were putting into three segments, but it felt very much like we were shooting one film, really, basically. Lots of moments, yeah. I mean, gaining the friendships, I guess, is the big one, and keeping in touch with people that I, spent 2 years of my life surrounded by in New Zealand. That's quite a nice thing, and connected with people that weren't even on screen with me, but the people that I worked with off screen, I've made some lifelong friends, and that's something I'll keep a memory of. It's people looking after each other, it's fighting for the right, it's sacrificing things for your loved ones and doing things that you don't believe you can do. And in Bard's scenario, he does things that he wasn't expecting to even be capable of doing, and he saves a lot of lives in the process. And there's lots of emotion and lots of threads of, there's so much going on in The Hobbit that it's difficult to just pinpoint certain things, but it just relates to so many different things that most audiences members can sort of target and appreciate. Yeah, I have a very good relationship with the fans. I'm on Twitter, and I have social media, which I enjoy using, and it's nice to get reaction and a response and dialogue with them. It's direct, which is really nice, and I think they're great. The fans of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, they're a really special bunch, very loyal and incredibly passionate about following the story and the journey that we're on as actors, as much as the journey the characters are on in the film. So yeah, no, they're an interesting bunch, and it's nice to be able to have access to them directly through social media. I think it works very well for this.
If you were being a creature, who would you be?
I'd probably like to be the dragon, just for a day.
Hi, my name's Jim, and I was wondering, what's your favorite movie snack?
Oh, popcorn, but you Americans do popcorn differently to the Brits, and you put butter and stuff on your popcorn. In the UK, we just have sweet popcorn, which just sort of has a bit of a sticky, toffee, sort of sugary coating, which is very, very nice.
So, Bard is introduced into this film as a somewhat mysterious character. Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he is quite mysterious, because I guess you don't really know much about him. He's just this bargeman who makes a deal with the dwarves to get them into Lake Town and help them pursue their journey onwards. But as the film goes on and the story unfolds, you realize there's more to him than meets the eye. He's not just a bargeman. He has a very interesting background and ancestry, and he's a father, he's a widow. He seems to have the trust of the people of Lake Town, which is quite interesting also, which makes him a bit of a threat to the master of Lake Town. So there's a lot to Bard.
Now, when the dwarves washed up on his lake, why was it that he helped them? What was at stake for him?
Money. He did it because there was money involved. And at this point in the film, all Bard thinks is that he's just going to get some money. He's just going to get them into town and get them some weapons, and they'll move on. Little does he realize they're way more trouble than they're worth.
Now, he has a hidden talent for archery. Was there any special training that you had to do for that skill?
Yes, there was. Yeah, we did a lot of training with archery, with bows, and working with the long bow, and just figuring out how to actually shoot a giant arrow. You know, 'cause that's quite a feat in itself, and shoot a lot of them. They're not, you know, there was a lot of, I shot a lot of bows and arrows in this film, so yeah, there was a lot of training. But you have to do that, you know, when you shoot something like this.
Now, was it fun to work with Stephen Fry as the master of the lake town? Your characters are quite different.
We are quite different, and we don't really like each other either, which is quite fun. No, I mean, Stephen is wonderful, and I think he plays a great role as the master of Lake Town. I think he's very interesting, and he looks fantastic. And yeah, it was very fun, very, very fun indeed. Watching two people trying to gain the trust of the people, two men trying to gain the trust of the people, which is quite a feat, and it's quite enjoyable to watch them. They're dynamic with each other, which isn't very nice.
Now, what was it like for you to come down to New Zealand and work with this whole cast of filmmakers and talent?
It was very refreshing. It was very nice to know that I wasn't going to have to travel for a while, and know I was going to be stationed there for quite a long period, the longest period I'd ever worked on any movie before. So yeah, that was really exciting, and quite quickly after you arrive, you just feel very relaxed and you feel part of the family. You know, they don't leave you to just work everything out yourself. They're there to help you settle in and get stuck into the film. There was a lot to do, so it was a wonderful experience, and I've made a lot of friends from it.
Oh, that's nice. Now, was there any particular scene that you really enjoyed shooting over the others?
Yeah, it's the scene that you won't see until, well, maybe I'll take up a scene in the second film, which I probably loved shooting. I guess the scene which was the slave motion capture scene, which is when I'm in the room with the dwarves, and I wasn't in the room with the dwarves. They were in another set, and I was in the green screen set, and you know, that amazing technology and wizardry that they have out in New Zealand, and they're able to make it look like we're in the same room. I think that was probably an amazing, to see the product of that effort blew me away, because I knew the effort that went into that scene, and to see the final product, which I thought was really impressive. Yeah, that's a really good, memorable scene.
It's fantastic. Now, you're a Welsh actor. Did you
Yes.
bring any of that into your character as Bard?
I brought a lot of that into my character as Bard, because Bard has a Welsh accent, and so very much of Bard and his ancestors and anybody else who came from Dale now have a Welsh accent in the film, which means that Wales will always play a role in the ancestry of Dale, which is a lovely thing.
That is a lovely thing. Has the experience of working on this film brought you any deeper understanding of the books at all?
Oh,
Are you
I think
familiar
so,
with
yeah. I think everybody that worked on this film left with much more knowledge of the depth of Tolkien's works. And, you know, we spoke about the appendixes and the Silmarillion and all of that stuff, all of the backstories, and, you know, there's a lot to Tolkien, and we met Tolkien's family, and so, yeah, there's a huge amount of knowledge we all left with, much more than probably most of us arrived with, for sure.
Working with Peter Jackson, how was that experience for you?
I don't think anybody would not want to have the experience of working with Peter Jackson. It's he thinks big, but he also can deal with very small detail, and that's an amazing talent. When you watch the film, you'll see how enormous it is, and it's all-consuming. Some of these scenes are just, you know, it takes your breath away. But, you know, never once does Peter forget about the actor, and what really matters in the scene is the story and the narrative and the people in it, and that's a lovely thing, that he always has he has an immense amount of respect for the actor, as much as he cares about the huge, you know, picture that the actor is sitting in.
Brilliant job. So you walk on set as the newcomer, and what is that like?
It was quite an intense first scene. It was on the rooftops of Lake Town, being chased by the dragon, so that was quite an intense beginning, and I was on wires and dealing with this huge bow and arrow that I was given as a prop, which became, you know, part of me in the end. It was probably a good way to start, you know. It's being dropped in at the deep end.
Baptism by fire.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it looked cold.
Literally by fire.
Yeah, literally
Yeah.
by fire.
If you awaken that beast, you will destroy us all.
And then what was it like when you were doing all of the scenes with all these amazing men acting alongside them? Did it feel like a fraternity?
Well, I'm glad it comes across because,
Yeah.
yes, it did feel like that. Off set, we were all very close. We all hung out and, you know, we're in New Zealand. None of us were, well, not many of us were not from New Zealand, so they became family. We were just a bunch of lads enjoying what was an incredible experience for all of us.
The folks in Colorado, Fast and Furious just finished some shooting there, and there's a real love, I think, not just on screen, but a feeling of you guys were in our state shooting. And that'll obviously be a big story tomorrow. Is there something you want to pass along? I know it's got to be heartbreaking.
They really were the warmest of people, and Paul especially was. He's just a lovely, lovely man, and he always made me feel very, very welcome. And he was a very warm human being and a very humble man. And I just can't imagine what his family are dealing with right now. It's incredibly sad. I'm still in shock, and yeah, I'm speechless, to be honest, about what's happened.
Bard is in some way an action hero because he has action, but he has also a human side because he wants to take care about his family. How do you work on the different levels of this character?
Well, you have to take one step at a time, I think. And you know, at the beginning of his story, he's the family guy. He's out to just make some money from these dwarves to support his family. It's, you know, slowly you discover his journey as it goes along. But at the beginning, he's not a hero. So I guess that's how I can do both. I don't think of him as the hero at all at the beginning. The most difficult, probably the ones when you're doing the slave motion capture, which is when you're doing the scene with the guys and they're smaller than you, so that you have to, you're doing it on a different set. You know, you're on your own and they're on a different set and it's larger and you're on a green screen and all of that, working out the eye lines, making sure you're looking at the person that isn't there, but you know, that's very difficult. And then the best thing, oh my God, I mean, there's quite a few. I guess I like the journey into Lake Town for the first time. Watching it was really beautiful. I really liked how you discover this Lake Town. It comes out of the mist, this huge, rickety, stilted village town, you know. I liked that. I thought it was a good... It has such a different energy to the first movie, which is great, you know, so you're not going back to watch the same thing again, just in a different place in Middle-earth. You're watching something that has a completely different energy about it. The pace of it is different, you know, obviously you're meeting new characters. So you meet Bard after the dwarves have escaped from the Mirkwood realm. You meet them on the shores of Lake Town, where he is standing there with a bow and arrow, and he makes a deal with the dwarves to bring them into Lake Town to help them progress their way through their story, their journey to their homeland. And he makes a deal with them for money, basically. He's a bargeman, that's what he does. He has no money, so any way to make a bit of extra money in this awful place called Lake Town, and that's what he does.
Congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much.
He was such a welcome character to see. There was a mysteriousness about Bard. What drew you to him mostly as
Probably
a man?
that, what you just said, is he's somebody that you don't, he's not the same person all the way through the film.
No, not
that's
at
what's
all.
interesting. His journey is really unusual, and he does things that I don't think even he expects to be able to do, and takes on this role which I don't think he ever wanted. But he is the only man for the job at certain points in the story, so it was a really enjoyable journey.
What mission is he on, though? I mean, it's so difficult at times to see where, and even for him, where his allegiances
Well,
lie.
he certainly doesn't want the dwarves to go to the mountain, because as much as it was a long, long time in the past, his ancestors were all killed by this dragon, which he knows now resides in the mountain, even though in his lifetime and lifetimes of his ancestors, they haven't seen this dragon. They just hear of him, you know. It's just this story, this transcended time that, you know, his ancestor, my ancestor, was the man that, you know, dislodged a scale on the breast of the dragon. So he knows that it might all be fair and great that, you know, you're going to get the gold back and everybody's going to be rich again and Lake Town's going to not be sinking anymore. But you have to remember that Bards remembers what happened, remembers the pain and the carnage and the complete, you know, death and annihilation of a whole race of people. He's a realist.
He's also got people to protect as well, doesn't he?
That's right, and that's his main objective in his life, is that all he has left. He's lost his wife. You know, there's this one lovely moment in the film, I'm glad they kept it, was when they, you know, mentions about his wife, and he just says, she was, you know, and you just think, this poor man, he has nothing. He's in a town where there is nothing, and all he has is his children, and throughout the whole film, the decisions he makes in the film are to save his children, and that's it. That's who he is. That's his core.
He, just on a slightly more personal level, an opportunity to, I understand, speak in your native Welsh tongue.
Yes.
Did you welcome that?
Yeah, I did welcome it, very much so. And that was something that came from Peter, Philippa and Fran. They all had heard my Welsh accent on interviews online and also in the audition tape I'd done months before.
And did they ask you specifically to audition in the Welsh accent?
Yes,
they
did,
nice.
yeah, for my screen test, yeah.
Nice.
They said, would you mind going in and doing it in a Welsh accent? And I was like, absolutely. I'd never done the Welsh accent on screen before, so, and sure enough, that's how it has become. That's Bard is Welsh, and it, you know, at the time I didn't realize, but you know, for Bard becoming Welsh meant that it actually had an effect. It trickles through to where all his ancestors would have had a Welsh accent. So anybody else in Lake Town, and there are some other Welsh actors in Lake Town that have ancestors from Dale, they all have a Welsh accent as well.
Nice.
It's great.
It is,
yeah.
It's a good touch to it. Entering into this Hobbit fray in the second chapter and leading into the third, how many days were you in New Zealand? How long were you down in Wellington? All over the place.
About 100 and something.
A lot. Is it the longest time you've spent elsewhere on a film set?
Yeah, as long as I've spent anywhere else in another country.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway? I really, you know, what was your favourite part of New Zealand? But sometimes when you spend that long in a country, there's kind of a takeaway.
Yeah.
And what was it for you?
I guess it was the people. I don't think I mean, I'm quite good at saying no, I'm not good at saying goodbye, but I don't get too emotional because I have to do it quite often, you know. Throughout the year, I probably say goodbye to huge groups of people, probably 2 or 3 times a year because of movies that I'm doing. But this, I have to say, when I left The Hobbit, it was extremely painful because, like, people like the guy that drove me to work every morning and looked after me, and and my dresser and my makeup artist, they are people I saw every single day, and I spent hours and hours of every day with them, and on weekends we'd still hang out, as well as cast members and all that stuff, you know. They are the things that made it for me, I miss them a lot because people don't work like they work in New Zealand. They have a very great sort of work ethic, and there's no hierarchy. Everybody's a team. And what's that game you play, 9 Square or 4 Square or something?
4 Square.
They play 4 Square in the car park at lunchtime. I've never worked on a movie where crew even speak to each other at lunchtime. But
Were
on
you really
this
good
movie,
at it? Did you
were,
play it?
Yeah, I had to go. I was rubbish at it. I was absolutely rubbish. But
I'm sure you
no,
weren't.
but it's a great place, and I'll be going back. You know, it's my second home now. So.
Oh, we hope so. Love the film. You were great.
Thank you.
Come back down anytime.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
mate.
much.
Cheers.
Take care.